Still on security matters in Kaduna State, there was a reception held for Christian worshippers that were kidnapped from 3 churches in Kurmin Wali community, Kajuru local government area. News Central confirms the final group of 84 victims were released on Thursday morning, days after more than 80 earlier regained freedom. The worshippers were abducted on January 18 when armed assailants attacked churches during Sunday services, triggering nationwide concern. The incident drew controversy after police initially denied the abduction before later confirming it. Community leaders say negotiations followed contact from the attackers. Kaduna State Governor Uba Sani met some of the freed victims and assured them of continued support and security. All right, we're going to Kaduna, where our correspondent, Emmanuel Bagudu, who has followed this story from the very beginning, will be joining us to give us an update. Also with us is Stephen Kefas, founder of Community Development and Rights Advocacy Foundation. He is in Jos, joins us for this conversation as well. Thank you very much for giving us your time.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
What are your thoughts about this latest return of victims without commensurate accountability for those who kidnapped them?
Yeah, once again, thank you very much. First and foremost, I want to really thank God for the fact that 177 human beings that were carted away by terrorists have finally returned back to their communities. But that is not the only conversation. The real conversation is accountability, which you talked about earlier. And also the fact that there are hundreds of others who are still in captivity across Kaduna State. But because they were not kidnapped from a church, or because they were not kidnapped in large number, nobody is really talking about them. But I can tell you in Kachia, in Kauru, in Chiku, in Ikulu, part of Zangokata, a lot of people are being kidnapped in Sanga local government area. A lot of people spend Christmas in captivity as we speak. I have names of communities and names of victims that were kidnapped before Christmas, and they are still in captivity. So the issue of accountability is very important. Yes, we are happy that they are back home, but what led to their release? I think as a government or as a people, as citizens, we are supposed to know much about what government is doing, because if you say these guys are back home, how did you secure their release? Was there an exchange of gunfire? Were the terrorists killed? What really happened? I think citizens deserve to know, so that citizens will know how best to live their lives, especially in communities where the presence of government is almost lacking in those areas.
Without accountability, like you've rightly pointed out, what consequences are we looking at here? Do we expect to see this cycle of kidnap, release, with no information as to what the future holds? It just seems so unpredictable and uncertain for planning.
Absolutely. You know, when you look at the whole saga from the beginning when they were kidnapped on January 18th, the fact that the police in the state and some government officials denied that the kidnapping took place is already a pointer to the fact that government was hell-bent on politicizing the issue from the very beginning. I remember I was the first person to make public the list of the abducted persons, the 177 persons. My post on Facebook went viral. It got to a point that they had to backtrack and admit that the people were actually abducted from their churches. But now, the issue of accountability. Now, let me explain. This cycle is going to continue because it's possible government had paid ransom to these terrorists. Of course, we've had state governments pay ransom, even federal government paid ransom to terrorists in the past. The big question is, what do these terrorists use this ransom to do? I wrote a report a few days ago where I interviewed someone who spent 5 months in captivity, and he told me that whenever ransom is going to be paid, you have suppliers, weapon suppliers, who brings weapons to these terrorists in exchange for the ransom they've received from victims. So what it means is that while the government continues to play politics, these terrorists are getting these ransoms and acquiring more weapons. I think that is why you see the widespread of insecurity in the country today. Places like Kwara. 5 years ago, Kwara was not in the news for insecurity, but now Kwara is a hotspot. So what it means is that these ransoms, according to the testimony of that person I interviewed, he said, these ransoms are being used to acquire weapons. So I think the government must do more than just trying to get people released for the optics. We need to know, because
beyond the optics, though, the Kaduna State Governor has announced new security measures. He said they are going to announce new security measures and development to protect residents of Kurmin Wali, which is a predominantly farming community. Does this give you a sense of assurance that something is being done to protect citizens from this incessant attack? Is it enough? Or, like you hinted, just optics?
Kurmin Wali is just one community. There are hundreds of communities that government presence is lacking in Kaduna State. In fact, Kajuru local government is a special case. There are communities you go to, there's no presence of government. No roads, no telecommunication network, no electricity, no healthcare. You manage to see a school, something that looks like a piggery that they call a school. Now, these places are also vulnerable. So Kurmin Wali, yes, maybe they are going to deploy security to Kurmin Wali, but what's happening to other communities across the state? So that is the issue. So if you don't solve the root cause of this problem, many other Kurmin Wali is going to happen in no distant time.
All right, let's talk about these people that were brought to see the governor. We saw from reports that some of them, the people that were abducted, were women and children. And we also saw those who were showing signs of emotional release from being captured for so long. First part of the question is, why this seeming targeting of women and children? And then second, do you think we have enough psychosocial support in terms of trauma management after these experiences? Because it seems like a huge chunk of our population have been held in captivity for a while.
Thank you so much. Well, that is one area we've been trying to look at. That's the Community Development and Right Advocacy Foundation. Most times when people get kidnapped, they spend 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, 6 months, even a year in captivity. They return, there's no psychosocial care for them. Most of them are traumatized. And I wrote something some weeks ago on X. I said, we have potential people with that if nothing is done, in the nearest future, we're going to have a lot of citizens that have mental health challenges. Why? Because they've been subjected to violence. Some of them have witnessed the killing of their loved ones, and there's not any form of psychosocial care for them. I think it's a very dangerous trend. In Kajuru, in Kaduna, in fact, in different parts of northern Nigeria, there are hundreds or even thousands of people who are just a shadow of themselves. They are no longer the people they used to be, and without deliberate effort to rehabilitate these people. And the irony is that while our government is more interested in rehabilitating repentant terrorists than rehabilitating its citizens. Quite unfortunate.
Pertinent point there, Stephen. But as the founder of the Community Development and Rights Advocacy Foundation, I think I got that right.
Yeah.
Community Development and Rights Advocacy Foundation. What is your organization doing in terms of pushing for better accountability for these attacks that we see, and perhaps with helping the citizens that have experienced this to recalibrate and be reintegrated into society?
First and foremost, what we've been doing in the last few months is to make sure that these stories make it to the public, is to make sure that any of such incident is properly documented. And a few days ago, we had a training where we trained grassroots activists on how they can document these issues. Because as far as I'm concerned, the government is more interested in its public image than in accountability. That is why you could have a commissioner of police saying nobody was kidnapped, whereas 177 people already in the bush with terrorists. So what as an organization we are trying to do, we are trying to make sure there's proper documentation so that it will not be said that these things didn't happen. So moving away from that, we're also looking at taking up some of these issues legally, because, I mean, right to life is a universal human right. But in Nigeria, you discover that people just get killed and we move on like it never happened. Sure. Okay, you have governors visit communities and the commissioner to the communities. What next? You know, so
okay, there's no yeah, because we get so much talk, but little sometimes follow up. I'm glad that your organization is making effort in this regard. Thank you for the work you do and for obliging us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.